It's got everything you could want in like an action thriller. Breonna Taylor has gone without justice for more than 120 days now. And while it is absolutely true that we have had far too many hashtags over the last 5, 6, 7 years, I got one more hashtag for you. It's this week's Quibi show, hashtag Free Rayshawn on the Everyman Movie Review. Hey everybody, and thank you for joining me for the latest episode of the Everyman Movie Review. As you know from the past couple of episodes, we are going to be doing a special series right now where I dive deep on Quibi shows and try to show you whether or not the platform as a whole and each individual show is worth your time. So we're going to start out the episode by talking a little bit about the show and what it is. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts on the show itself. And then at the end, I'll give you my rating and let you know whether or not it's worth your time to watch the entire thing and your money to spend on the Quibi platform. Hashtag Free Rayshawn, which I'm just going to call Free Rayshawn from here on out, is the story of a black Iraq war veteran who ends up getting in a standoff with the New Orleans Police Department. But before we get any farther into the description, let's get through the pleasantries, shall we? Free Rayshawn was created by Mark Marino. It was directed by Seth Mann. It is starring Laurence Fishburne as Stephen Pointsy, Stephen James as Rayshawn, Jasmine Cephas Jones as Taisha, Daniel Sunjata as SWAT Commander Alvarez, Danny Boyd Jr. as Rayshawn Jr., Skeet Ulrich, back from the dead, apparently haven't seen him in a while, as Sergeant Mike Trout, Mitch Eakins as Detective Tommy Roberts, Thomas Blake Jr. as Detective Souls, and Alicia Osei as the DA Sarah Foreman. I have to say that of all the shows that I watched on Quibi, this one is the one that kind of kept me on the edge of my seat the most. I was never sure what was going to happen, and in that way, I think it most reflected real life. While I could really relate to some of the shows on a nostalgia basis, this was the one that made me feel almost like I was watching a actual live thing happen, like from, a camera inside the apartment and then the news vans outside and getting an inside line, yes, but it's almost ripped from the headlines in a way. There was a young woman named Corinne Gaines from Baltimore who barricaded herself in her apartment with her young son, and the Baltimore Police Department bust their way in and shot and killed her and injured her son. And maybe it's because Corey and I on the Other Anthem podcast, it's a news and top stories of the week show podcast that we do every single week, OTheAnthem.com. We talked a lot about that case. And maybe that is why I related so much to this story, because it was so very similar. Rayshawn feels as though he's been set up by Skeet Ulrich and his band of undercover detectives. He runs back home, and when he gets home, barricades the door and prepares for the long haul. Now, he's also an Iraq war vet, so he's a little bit more prepared for this kind of scenario. There's some things that happen that, I don't know that everybody would be ready for. Like, tear gas gets thrown in the window, and he knows to cover his face and eyes with a wet towel and put a pot on top of the tear gas canister and then scoop it up and throw it back out the window. Not a lot of people have that kind of thought under fire situation, but obviously a vet would. He also had pre-prepared a way to barricade the door, and the couch was in a position to move up against the door, and all of that stuff that some of us think about, that I think about. I talked about my entire skill set that was waiting to come out for a zombie apocalypse in a previous episode, but not everybody thinks about that. But eventually the cops catch up to him at his house, and now the standoff begins. And Laurence Fishburne as Detective Poisey, he is kind of brought into it at the edges. And this is one thing I love about Quibi shows, that other shows, they kind of get too much in the details. There is something going on in the background with Detective Poisey, and they never really are clear about it. But you can see it's changed the way that he deals with Rayshawn, and maybe he wouldn't do this in the past, but now he does. I don't need to know what happened with him. It's not part of this story. But I just know that it's there. That's all I really need. And I know that Rayshawn was an Iraq war vet. I don't know what he experienced over there. And I'm sure it had something to do with the way he's reacting now. But I don't need all the details. Quibi is so much just in and out. Get to the point. Every action scene is an action scene. And we cut out all the nonsense in between. And I think that's what makes me love the platform so much. But over the course of the last 12 episodes, and this one does run a little longer, I think it's 15 total episodes, and they're all somewhere between 9 and 12 minutes. Rayshawn is facing off against the police, and SWAT is threatening to go in, and the detectives are trying to CYA, and he says he's set up and he wants a video, and the detectives won't get it, and they say it doesn't show what he thinks it, and there's like a lot of different things going on, and all the time we're just going towards this ticking clock of this is going to end in violence. And we all know it's going to end in violence because when you get SWAT involved, that's going to be violence. And his wife and his child are in the apartment. But as I know from the Corinne Gaines case, and as many people know, that's not going to stop them. They're going to come in with their guns blazing anyway, and they're going to consider the wife and the child collateral damage. And Rayshawn knows this, and he's trying to negotiate, and the only person he'll talk to is Pointsy, and the cops don't want Pointsy on the phone, and he wants to do what's best for everybody, and he's trying his best, and Rayshawn is trying, and everyone else just seems like they want to do everything to get it over with. And we're moving and we're moving and we're moving towards this culmination. And that's kind of how you feel while you're watching it. It's just like on the edge of your seat the whole time. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I've said this in previous episodes before. If you had to watch this day after day as they drop new episodes, it would be supremely frustrating that those cliffhangers leave you waiting until the next day. But again, I think that makes for good entertainment. If you've got me so much that I am upset of having to wait for the next episode, that means it's just entertaining. It's good TV. Don't know why people are complaining about that. Now, I waited a little while so I could watch and binge it all together. That makes it easier, right? Don't watch it when it's new. Watch it while it's been out, and then you can binge it. And then you can be like me, sitting on the edge of your seat for the better part of 2 hours, waiting to find out what's going to happen, and waiting to see if this hashtag Free Rayshawn, ends somewhat better than those other ones have before. And if you're not privy to what all of those hashtags are, there's an easy way for you to figure that out. Follow me on social media, at Robert N. Cheek, no matter what the social media network is. I'm pretty prolific with my posting, and you're going to be able to kind of get up to date because I try to stay pretty in tune with what's going on in the world. And if you don't like the political stuff and maybe you're just looking for content, you can find plenty of that on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rob Cheek, and go to robertncheek.com for even more stuff, including links to the books that are available on Amazon. As I said earlier, I do a weekly podcast with my buddy Corey, news and sports and the top stories of the week. That's at otheanthem.com. And all over the internet at Oh The Anthem. And if you're looking for the social media for the Everyman Movie review, you can find that down in the show notes below, along with a link to watch Free Rayshawn on Quibi. Now, if you are not into action, if you're not into, BLM, if you're not into that entire movement and you just don't care, you don't want to see it, first of all, it's a part of you whether or not you care. It's happening in your country. Like, pay attention. But if not, that's fine. This is not going to be the show for you. But I think that this show has everything. It's got like a question about who's lying and who's telling the truth. And you want to believe one, but can you really believe them? And there's good cops and there's bad cops. And Rayshawn seems like he's good, but maybe he's not as good as we think. It's got everything you could want in an action thriller. So I think everyone's going to like it. And although there's some language and like a little bit of violence, there's nothing too over the top. So it's going to be pretty safe for most people. Again, Quibi is aimed at tweens and teens. This content, I think, is for older crowd. It's going to be for those in the movement, which is going to be maybe late teens, 20s, and 30s. So closer than most of the shows I've reviewed, but still not exactly where you want to be. Nonetheless, I think it's worth the price of admission. Quibi is $4.99 per month. If you already have a subscription, make sure you search for hashtag Free Rayshawn and check out this show. If you don't, I think this one alone is worth the price of admission for Quibi. It's $4.99 and there's no contracts. Check out this show and the other ones I've reviewed if you think that they're for you. And then at the end of the month, just cancel and walk away. But I do have one more show that I want to do a review for, so make sure you come back next week to check that out. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great week, everybody.